Rafano. I want to talk about greenhouses, which have been meaning to do, but I've been holding off until I got to a stage that I felt like I was finished with this extension or improvement on the old greenhouse that we've had for about 15 years. And the reason I want to talk about greenhouses is that they are probably the most affordable, fast and versatile buildings that you could possibly come up with at pretty much any stage of property owning. So places where you can't otherwise get away with building something. Can be something temporary that you can take down fast, so it can be great if you're on a rental or at your parents' property or in a property that you may or may not stay at for a long time. It's something super cheap that basically gives you a huge amount of covered area that you would spend far more if you're doing it with any kind of more solid materials like tin or wood, etc. And it's also really fast, so you don't need a lot of materials and you also put them in place really fast. And it uses very little resources in general. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a tour of this greenhouse and just some of the modifications I did. Some of them will be applicable to you if you want to do a greenhouse. Some of them I'm just really excited about sharing, so bear with. Most of this greenhouse was free and is second-hand. So the actual internal structure is steel arches that we got from a greenhouse in town. We took it apart and it was sort of like a come and take everything, sort of planting pots and bags. We ended up then burying the ends in the ground in concrete blocks, which made the greenhouse a lot lower than it is now. And so one of the things I've been wanting to do for years, has been a dream, is to raise the whole thing up. So what you see here, actually Jara cross arms, they're used on power lines, and then made up these metal brackets here that you can see. Welded them up and screwed them on this side, and then one at a time with a group of people we lifted them up into these sockets. That's allowed us to go 1.5 meters higher than the greenhouse was before. What we want to do with this front section is a classroom sort of environment. Everywhere where you see these macrocarpa studs sticking up, that's all going to be a wattle and daub wall. So here you can see I made a concrete foundation, and that plastic is temporary. This whole front space is going to be all clay walls, which I think is going to be really lovely, and also provide some of the heat sink. So a lot of the heat from the greenhouse gets absorbed and then released throughout the night. What we've got up there is triangle windows, and what we've done now is we have a pulley system. All we have to do is let the rope go and our windows open. So that's our ventilation in summer when it gets really hot, and it creates the airflow up at the higher end of the greenhouse where all the hot air gets accumulated. And then to close it, we just pull it shut and tie it off on these sailing cleats. Anything attached to the ground, I use these Jara cross arms and then attached macrocarpa to those. So that gives me the combination of untreated wood above ground and then something that's durable below ground. Everywhere where we have the wattle and daub walls, I've got these flashings, and obviously because there's copious amounts of water that run off the side of the plastic down straight onto the walls. So what I'm really happy with on these seedling tables here is something that was kind of accidental. I wanted to do a cantilever table, so as opposed to having legs on the outside, which would make it hard to get things like long bits of wood in, I wanted to have no legs on the outside and only legs on the inside, and use the same cross arms basically on the table inside and outside. And then actually what it ended up being really practical for was a table that was on the same level and allowed us to slide crates in and out depending on the maturity. So when we want to have our seedlings weathered before they go into the garden, then we can just grab them and easily bring them outside as opposed to walking them the whole way around. So my next task here really is close this gap up here, and something that can be lifted maybe, or is light enough that it doesn't damage the seedlings when they slid in and out. As you can see, the forest here has a lot more headroom than it used to, which has been quite lovely for the trees. And here we have the ends of our seedling table where they drain out. So the entire thing is on a slight slope towards this end so that water runs off. So here we have the extreme, I guess, and this is actually belonging to Simon and Catherine, who are Patreon followers. So luckily we've got Simon here to explain a little bit of the idea behind his awesome design, and this has got to be one of my favorite workshops. I love this 4-man deck, this sort of raised platform. So yeah, here we've got Simon, and maybe he can give us a little bit of a rundown of these bamboo scaffold system.
Well, the philosophy behind this was minimal cost, but also maximum flexibility because of the winds we have. And also I had bamboo on site, so I wanted to try and build our own trusses for this polyhouse. The challenge was joining the bamboo because we had green bamboo, and I didn't want to have to wait until the bamboo was dry and cured before I put it up. So we've come up with this plan with, you can see on each of the joins, there is a plywood sandwich, essentially, 2 pieces of plywood on either side, and you can see bolts going through on the joins. The bolts don't go through the bamboo, they go around each side of the bamboo. And the reason for that is twofold. One is the bamboo was green and shrinks when it dries, so as it shrank we could just do the bolts up and keep the joints firm. But the other beauty of the system is that if a bamboo member breaks or becomes rotten or gets boral or something like that, you can undo the bolts, drop a piece of that bamboo out and put a new piece in without actually having to take the whole polyhouse down. So combination of those two means that we're quite happy with the system, and it's very flexible in the wind and it creaks like a ship, but it's never fallen down yet, touch wood.
And how much did it cost you, would you say, sort of adding up the little things?
Adding up all the things, well, I haven't done a separate cost between that part and the main workshop part, but that part there might have cost me well less than $1,000, maybe $600-700. Basically the cost was threaded rod, bamboo sheet, and you can see also these steel cables that you can see between each of the trusses. So those steel cables hold the trusses tight together across that bamboo pole, and that holds them upright.
Incredible. $1,000 for easily an 80 square meter footprint?
Yes, that's 100 square meters.
100 square meters.
100 square
Incredible.
Meters. I was priced for the trusses for these in the cheapest material I could find, and for 5 trusses it would have cost me $10,000 to buy them.
Genius. So yeah, this is just such an amazing space. You've got 2 large projects that would blow up pretty much any workshop in normal situations. And what's really beautiful here is just got such an ambient light, even on a really overcast day. Beautiful, under $1,000, and here's a man. We did it. Also, these walls, while we're here, this is actually initially inspired by my work, but Simon definitely took it to a very beautiful level. His recipe for this coat is actually one that I've then copied as well in videos that we've done on earth building. So his what he came up with was the paper pulp with lime and clay mix. I believe it was 1 lime, 1.5 paper, and 1.5 clay. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
And
that would depend on the type of clay you've got, of course, and the finish you want. But that seems to work very well for us. That's also the coat on the outside, so it seems to be pretty weatherproof.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Simon. It's really great seeing your workshop and showing it to other people who are inspired by getting some low-tech, simple builds on their farms. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you don't feel like building your own greenhouse, there's this model from Redpath. It's just under $1,000 for the whole unit, plastic and aluminium hoops included. This greenhouse is being used for a chicken shelter. Might look a little bit funny, the fact that it's on an angle on a slope, and the idea here is that when the chickens are in the shelter, they get food scraps and bedding in at the top, and then in the process of scratching it, they scratch it down towards one end, which makes harvesting it a lot easier because you can just get it from the bottom end. So now we're gonna go up to another place where a different kind of being is living in a greenhouse. Here we have the complete opposite extreme. This is a glass house from Eden Glass Houses. So it's fully aluminium and glass panes with tiles that are made of cement and scoria on glass and plastic to make different textures. You can be surrounded by the things that you love, plants, and they create semblance of walls. You don't really want to have conventional buildings surrounded by dense vegetation because they take away your light. In this situation, being inside a greenhouse, you end up having the opposite, where you actually want that sense of enclosure, and if that happens to be the vegetation that you love to observe and make a living from, all the better. So yeah, this is another use of a greenhouse, and has another niche of application. On the outside, these walls are ferrocement with Jara cross arms from power poles, and on the inside we have the same clay lime plaster that we've used in our office space, as well as what Simon used in his greenhouse. So the really nice thing here is that the example is being used on bare concrete, so it shows you that you can retrofit even brick buildings or concrete buildings and make them feel more like a clay building that's a little bit more soulful and warm and special. So there you have it. If you've just got a piece of land and you're wondering what you should build first, build a greenhouse. If you've got land and you're wondering what you should build next, build a greenhouse. And if you already have a greenhouse, build another greenhouse. They are such multifunctional spaces, so affordable. Yeah, all the practical ways that a greenhouse is going to help you maximize land use. Cheers.